Welcome back, everybody. My name is Tucker, and today I wanted to take a look at some things that could drastically change the NBA as we head into a new year in 2019. Things that throughout the course of the year, at various points in the year, whether it's in season, off season, whatever it is, there are some major events that could completely change the league from the beginning of the year all the way through the end. And 2019 is going to be a really exciting year in NBA basketball. So let's just go ahead and start talking about some of the things that I have on my mind for this coming year. The first big one that's gotten a lot of attention lately is the potential for Anthony Davis to no longer be playing for the New Orleans Pelicans at some point in 2019. Now, if this did happen in 2019, it would have to be via trade because Anthony Davis is locked up longer term than that, but the Pelicans are going to offer him a supermax extension at some point this year, and if he doesn't take it and they start to get the indication that he does not want to stick around and he has his eyes on other places in free agency, they are going to be very likely to try and make a move. Now, this video is not meant to provide any kind of speculation on whether or not Anthony Davis is going to leave or whether he's unhappy, because by all reports, it seems like he loves New Orleans and he loves playing basketball there, and we're all kind of just assuming that the reason he would want to leave is because their team isn't very good, they're not putting a ton of talent around him, and that could possibly mean that he won't sign that extension I was talking about. And even though all reports seem to say that it's going to come down to either Boston or LA in a trade scenario simply because they have a lot to offer and they want to be that next team after the Warriors Dynasty is over to be continuously competing for NBA championships, if it is a trade situation, then it doesn't really matter where Anthony Davis wants to play. It matters where the Pelicans want to send him and what they're going to be getting back. And obviously, like I said, the Lakers and the Celtics have a ton to offer. The Celtics specifically have a ton of assets that they can throw at New Orleans, and if they really wanted to, could absolutely put together the best package of assets in return for Anthony Davis, and it's going to take a lot to get a player of his caliber. And if it gets to that point, I do think the Pelicans would listen, but wherever he goes is going to be a massive shift in the league. If he goes to Boston and teams up with guys like Kyrie Irving and Jason Tatum, if he doesn't end up going to the Pelicans, that would be a huge shift in the league, and they would be the prohibitive NBA champion favorites moving forward. Whereas if he went to go join a super team or create a super team in LA, which is something that I'm going to talk about, then that would obviously shift the league. Or if he went to some other team like potentially Dallas or somewhere else that was able to put together a random trade package that is unforeseen at this point that would trump either what Boston or the Lakers want to throw at him, then that would also completely change the league, because that's one of the things that both of those two teams are banking on, is potentially having AD on their team in 2019 or 2020. So that is, as you can tell by the way I'm talking about it, one of the more exciting things to look forward to in 2019 that could change the league is the Anthony Davis trade or free agency situation. And moving on now to something that I kind of stepped on in my last section, and that is the possibility of a Los Angeles super team. Now, I specifically said Los Angeles. I did not say just the Lakers, because I've made a video on this before, and I think the Clippers are a very legitimate max contract level free agency destination this summer. They have a ton of different directions they could go in, including potentially Anthony Davis, including potentially Kawhi Leonard, including potentially Jimmy Butler. Any of those guys, any of the big name free agents on the market this summer, the Clippers, I think, have a good chance of signing them, including a guy that I'm going to talk about in the next section, Kevin Durant. So any four of those guys, Anthony Davis, Jimmy Butler, Kawhi Leonard, Kevin Durant, and you could even throw Kemba Walker in there depending on how his relationship with the Charlotte Hornets progresses from here on into free agency. Any of those guys could potentially be playing for either LA team in 2019, and that's just a crazy arms race to kind of wrap your mind around in terms of either free agency or trades, because the Clippers have a good amount of trade assets as well, and it's just so exciting to me to think about two competing teams in the same city that are going to be fighting for control of that city, and both of them are good right now. I mean, obviously the Lakers have LeBron, and they already got one of their big free agent signings, and they're looking for more, but the Clippers have been playing well this season. They've got a lot of depth, and they have a lot of versatility in terms of which direction they could go in. So we could potentially see Kawhi and Kevin Durant playing with the Clippers next year. We could see Kevin Durant and Anthony Davis playing with LeBron next year. We could see none of those things, and Kawhi and Durant and Jimmy and AD could all stay at their teams or go to other teams outside of LA. But to just consider the fact that there are all these big markets like Boston and both LA teams having the possibility to bring in all these high caliber and max contract level free agents, and all the possibilities that go towards that, mean that this summer, if it goes the way of players changing teams, could be one of the more impactful summers that we've had in a long time, maybe even on the level of something like when LeBron James first left Cleveland via the decision and joined up in Miami with Chris Bosh and Dwayne Wade. So for me, it's not just about the possibility of an LA super team that's exciting, it's just all the possible player movement, whether it's LA or not. And once again, kind of going along with the point that I was making in the last section, the possibility of the end or start of the end of the Golden State Warriors dynasty is a realistic one in 2019, in my opinion. I've made multiple videos on this. I really, really think, especially just like how willing Kevin Durant is to talk about the way teams should be recruiting him and talking about the possibilities moving forward and where he could potentially go. And it's not like he's just saying, I want to stay here in Golden State. And I've talked about this in multiple videos before. I think it's a real possibility that Kevin Durant isn't going to re-sign with Golden State, and where he goes is going to have a huge, huge impact on the league in 2019 and moving forward. And it's not even just the Durant thing, which I'm going to talk plenty about, I'm sure, but it's also just the fact that the Warriors aren't playing as well this season, and they seem, even more so than they did last year, they seem a little bit bored. Draymond Green and Klay Thompson are both struggling to start this season. They could obviously both turn it on and just be so much better than they have been to start this season. At any point in the year, that could 100% happen. But I am starting to see some cracks. I mean, especially Draymond, he's gone almost completely downhill. People don't even guard him offensively anymore. They've kind of figured out the best way to defend him in terms of limiting his playmaking opportunities and just letting him shoot threes. And he still does a lot for them defensively, but they're not as much of a juggernaut as you might think, at least from what I've seen. Now, they're obviously still the favorite to win the championship this year, and if Kevin Durant resigns, they're going to continue to be the favorite, and obviously we'll see how the Marcus Cousins situation unfolds, but I am starting to see some cracks, and that's why I have it specifically in my notes, end of Warriors Dynasty potential, because they very well could, like I said, bring back Durant and run off 6 or 7 consecutive NBA championships. I think that's a realistic possibility, but especially if Durant leaves, which I think is a very, very, very likely event, things could be changing very quickly for the Warriors and for the league in general, and in my opinion, probably in a positive way, just to have a little bit more parity at the top and have a few more exciting finals moments that we've had the last 2 years at least. Moving on now to something kind of out of the box from the first couple of points that I made, and all it says in my notes here is Zion Mania, the possibility for Zion Williamson to bring with him a ton of hype to the NBA ranks when he is drafted very, very high in the 2019 NBA draft. Now, I will say, I will completely 100% admit this to you guys, prior to Zion Williamson coming to Duke and playing in college, I had seen him play in person. I had seen him play, obviously, the way most of you guys have on YouTube, and I wasn't that impressed. I thought that he was just a man among boys. I thought he was just a giant human playing against regularly sized high school kids, and that was a big reason why he was having so much success. But having watched him at Duke to start this year, I am legitimately terrified of what he could do in the NBA, because he's actually a lot more skilled than I thought he would be, specifically as a passer. He obviously has a ton of versatility defensively. He is one of the few guys that I can remember that makes grabbing a rebound a highlight just by the way he jumps off the ground and how quickly and how ferociously he jumps. So the possibility of him being a big-time star in the NBA is definitely an exciting one, and he could very well turn out to be a bust. He still has to figure out a way to shoot the ball better from three-point range. He still has a lot of things to figure out about his game, but just Zion Mania in general, like I said, I have in my notes, could be a very, very big topic of 2019 and something that I'm looking forward to. I'm obviously hoping that his career turns out well and he turns out to be an absolute superstar. And I'd be completely fine with being wrong about my original assessment on him if that's the case, but it's also possible that his skill just doesn't translate to the NBA and he's just not a superstar caliber player, because there is so much hype with him that it's going to be difficult to live up to it. But even with all that said, I just think it's an incredibly intriguing and interesting storyline to watch. And if he does become, one of the top 10 players in the league, then wherever he gets drafted to is going to, once again, just drastically shift where the league is going in 2019. And lastly, I wanted to leave this towards the end of the video simply because I can feel myself getting really excited about the NBA in 2019 and just where the league's going to be going. But I also want to hedge my bets and just make it understood that these are not guarantees, right? I mean, things could be exactly the same. Anthony Davis could stay with the Pelicans. All those free agents I talked about could re-sign with their teams. The Warriors could continue to dominate. Zion could come in and just be a regular top 5 pick and not anything completely out of the ordinary. All those things could just be exactly the same. Everything could stay the way that it is in the league right now. But even if that's the case, it's still a great place to be. The NBA is still a thriving, fantastic sports league. It's a league that I love making content on, and it's a league that I look forward to continuing to cover all of 2019. You guys have given me this awesome opportunity by watching my videos, by subscribing to the channel, to allow me to talk about all of these things that you can see me getting very excited about. And even if, none of these things happen, it's going to be cool to talk about and cool to discuss and think about the possibilities. And there's probably plenty of things on this list, or plenty of things that aren't on this list, that will happen that will completely shift the league. For example, I didn't really foresee a Jimmy Butler trade again this past season, and I didn't really see it to Philly even at the time that it happened, so that kind of came out of nowhere. The Kawhi Leonard thing kind of came out of nowhere when he wanted to leave the Spurs. So even as much as I'm trying to kind of look forward to and not so much predict, but just kind of see where things are coming from a little bit further away in terms of what could happen in 2019, I obviously have no way of knowing whether or not they're actually going to happen, and I'm sure there's plenty of things that are on this list that could happen and shift the league. But either way, I'm just incredibly excited for 2019. I think it's going to be an awesome year in the NBA, and I'm extremely excited about it. But with all that out of the way, like I said, once again, my name is Tucker. If you missed any of my previous videos, be sure to check out the boxes on screen, and I'll see you all next time.